things and
I'm not an expert at answering them either.
and what
If I should do some stammering, it's maybe because of my health condition, and even my words don't always come out right. I don't know if it's from a minor stroke or what, but you'll have to bear with me.
we'll bear with you all the way, Glenn.
The more comfortable I get, the easier it is.
Sure.
So.
And I know I have to start this off by just saying this is John Larson interviewing Glen Johnstone regarding the Vasaloppet on the 30th of December 2014. And by the way, I want you to know it's my birthday, so this is your present to me.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my birthday. I'm like 26, I think now.
It's your birthday today.
This is Glen's present to me.
Happy birthday. Let's see, I gotta think, what, 30th? 29th.
It's 30th.
30th, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh gosh.
Well, time marches on.
It does.
Right before New Year's.
I think I hit record on that.
Okay.
So, but Glenn, I guess the main question I have has to do with how did the idea of the Vasaloppet start? I mean, somebody had the idea at some point.
I'm gonna have to start with the fact that sister city, Moore became a sister city with Moore, Sweden, and maybe this will have to be researched, but I think it was 1968.
Okay.
And so that was in place, and just to go ahead a little bit from there, Moore, Sweden is in Dalarna, so we I shouldn't say we, but our committee started a program called Dala Days, and it grew and grew over the next just few years. It grew into a big thing, really big. It got big enough that it rivaled the Kennebec County Fair. You know, and we even had. I say we because I did have a little part in that too, of rides, Ferris wheel, some of that kind of stuff, and so you can understand why the fair board
got a little nervous.
Didn't appreciate that, so we backed off of that. And but anyway, another arm of what was called the commercial club, which was now called Chamber of Commerce, but in those days it was called the commercial club, and they had an arm of the commercial club was a trade extension committee.
Okay.
And I was real interested in that. I was the only one of Eastern Moore as far as business places. And so I wanted to be part of it, just because.
Yeah.
And but we met once a week, and usually at the downtowner. And so those meetings would last maybe only 45 minutes or thereabouts, and so we would kick around different things that the town could do to make it better and make it better for business. And what prompted we were thinking different programs that we could maybe push to help the town out. And someone brought up the fact that they just casually said, there's a big ski race in Morris, Sweden, and so we didn't know anything about that, but it might have been somebody that was closer to the sister city thing, and so they told a little bit about what they knew about it, which wasn't very much. And then the thought came up, and I have no idea if it came from me or somebody else, but they mentioned how about a ski race, as long as they have a ski race in Morriswood, and that really appealed to me because I had done quite a bit of skiing when I was younger, and even during the late '60s, we were downhill skiing at Trollhug and Wild Mountain, and before 72, 71, we were making trips out to Alta, not Alta, excuse me. I can't.
Aspen.
Aspen, Colorado, and Vail, and so I had a little bit of a skiing background, although that was a different type of skiing that took place. And anyway, getting back to the idea of skiing, everybody was very happy about that. And that would be a pretty good idea. And then they started batting around in our committee. Well, how about from Ogilvie to Mora? And we had other ideas of where to have it. And this was already getting into the year. I forget, it might have been May or June or April. I can't remember when these thoughts started coming about a ski race, and but we wanted to have this event to happen that following winter, and well, that's an awfully tight schedule.
Yeah.
Being that there was no trails.
Right. Right.
Nothing decided on, and so and then someone brought up the fact that well, who's going to run it? Who's going to operate this? And I was a Junior Chamber of Commerce, JC's, and I belonged to them. But I was a retired rooster. A retired rooster is one that's over 36 years old.
Okay.
Their age limits were, it escapes me a bit, whether it was 20 or 21 to 36. And then you could be a retired rooster for those next 3 years. So you could go to meetings, you wouldn't have a vote, but you could participate and just join your friends that you made.
Right.
And so I was a retired rooster, so I volunteered. I said, I'll take this up with the next JC meeting, which I did, and they agreed to operate the race. And you want me to just rattle on from there, or do you want any questions up to that point?
The only question I had at the moment is, do you remember any of the other extension? You said the Trade Extension Committee. Do you remember any of the other members?
Oh, let's see. Some of those names that a lot of them really escape me. Molly Bees, maybe.
Okay.
And maybe Ace Hardware was still under the same ownership as now. I'm not sure. The bakery and the drugstores. There was 2 drugstores, Upper and Lower.
Right.
And Gus Rolke. Now some of those maybe weren't on this. I'm just naming a few business places. They weren't necessarily on those committees, the committees were usually, well, I suppose, 8 or 10 people.
Okay.
As on an average, it would be belong to that. And from there, then the committee wanted to know about the trail, and so I guess I getting. I've already mentioned that we didn't have a ski trail,
Mm-hmm.
and everywhere where we turned from out of Mora, there was a lot of farmers at that time. At that time, there was probably over 400 small farms in Kennebec County, and a lot of fences.
Right. I
Yeah.
remember that.
And so I talked against that. I said, but we only have X number of months, very little time to get a trail ready for this coming race. And I said, I was born up in the northern part of the county, and up in Haybrook Township, and there's still a lot of logging roads that are, sure they go helter-skelter, but they can be connected, some
Right.
of them. And I says, why not have a circular race up there and hold it, and of course this did a little bit of research, but anyway they agreed to it. The agreement was made that we would do it using those trails that I was familiar with, and one of the first things that I have to say I contacted was the people that had the farm right in Mormon, and that the name of the farmer escapes me right now, but the
It wasn't Linder?
no,
Oh,
it wasn't Linder. It was I initially wanted to start right in Mormon,
Okay.
Oh.
and because there's some fields off to the west, and he says, well, he says I like the idea of this farmer and everything, but he says, why don't you talk to Ernie Linder? He says he's got a big open area just north of there, half to 3/4 of a mile.
Right.
And he said, why don't you talk to him? So I did that, and he agreed to it wholeheartedly. Told us we could use the parking lot, and as I remember, jumping ahead, when we did get snow that fall, that he made a parking lot prior to the race date, and we. One thing I didn't research now is just how we happened onto. I guess it was because of the dates of the race in Sweden, and I think we had. I think we picked a Sunday that was shortly before the race in Sweden. But we had an awful lot of work to do with I did have a volunteer that spent quite a bit of time with me, and that was you have to excuse me because I forget the names. Help me with that.
Male or female?
No, man.
Oh, well,
He was in the Scott, not Scott.
You mentioned Wally Thorson before, but it
No,
wasn't
no,
him.
no, no. No, this this fellow had a lot of whiskers. He died not too long ago up on Highway 27. And he was
Yeah, we just mentioned them the
he was
other day.
he was always a good. No, I hate to make all of these hums and.
No, that's
You
fine.
mentioned his name.
There was a Cole that died.
Cole.
Cole?
Now we got it.
Yeah.
Was it
He-
Ed?
Uh,
Is that right?
there was not, I wish I would have thought.
Well, anyway, we'll go with Cole.
Okay. But he had an old snowmobile. I don't know what kind it was, but prior to that, the snowmobile part of it, and we had a big Johnson, and all those machines were quite heavy,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't very dependable.
No.
And the old theory of you work on them, you ride them one day and you have to work on them the next.
Right.
In order to keep them going.
I have snowmobiles like that.
And, but he was a big help, and we started out from Ernie Linder's farm, which was a big open area, and we agreed on a place to have for a start, and then we worked our way west, and then we hit some logging trails, but we had to connect them, because the logging trails went helter-skelter.
Right.
And so we connected them with a lot of axe and brush hooks, and we didn't have saws. We didn't have chainsaws. So we made our way through the woods by a very narrow trail, because it wasn't necessary to have them wide
Right.
like today.
Right.
If you could get through with an Alpine snowmobile, it was almost good enough.
Right.
And so we made our way all the way over to County Road 80, and from there whenever we would run into maybe a beaver pond, or maybe even abandoned beaver pond where there wasn't many trees, we would try to make use of those areas without going too zigzaggy with the trail. And so it was brush hook and axe, and moving the stuff out of the way.
Yep.
And so
And you did that when there was snow on the ground, or
no, this was before.
Before, okay.
Before, but even after because we were still working on and of course, number one, we needed the landowner's consent
Mm-hmm.
to go everywhere that we went, and that was decided on prior to, because I made the rounds of all of the landowners that would be affecting. Some of them we didn't even know yet until we got on them, and we had some state land, and all the landowners were, which were few, up in there, and a lot of the land belonged to us. We had quite a bit of land, so that early trail went over quite a bit of our own land once we got that 2 miles in from Linder's.
Mm-hmm.
And
Land that you personally owned.
yeah,
Right.
and so that as time went on and we were getting closer to the race date, there was one area where this happened to be Bachman's, which was on the south side of County Road 25. So we had to make a crossing there, and And we came out just east of Alden Smith, just a little within sight of their buildings. And we, of course, we had his permission to be there. And then we stayed on his property and went down to a fence line going south. And then we hit Bachman's property. And unbeknownst to us at that point, they'd given us permission too. But they had been bringing in firewood off of a lake that they had flooded, or I mean a pond or a creek. And so they had quite a big pond back there, and those trees were dead. And so they were doing an awful lot of firewood hauling, and they were hauling them into their home by with snowmobiles pulling hoods from a car. They got a hood from a car upside down and made an excellent thing for sliding.
Yep.
But it sure raised Cain with the
trail.
because
Sure.
it was like a skating rink. and so we figured, well, we'll have to hope for a little bit of snow to help, and so we made it through through that area, and then on to County Road 25 again, because that just made a loop into the south.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there the trail went north. Once in a while we did an open little meadow, and we'd take advantage of that if it's anywhere near our and then we finally come to Ernie Linder's land. He had made a corral, not a corral really, just a fence line on his land, border of his land with the dozer, and he had all kinds of wood material, trees, smaller ones. He was in the logging, so he was interested in logs, not the small stuff. So he pushed all kinds of along his fence line. That's a berm that was about probably at least 4 feet high that you had to kind of crawl over.
Oh.
And so, but anyway, that kept his cattle in that portion of the trail. But it was a kind of a bearcat for the ski, because you could make it over all right, but you had to almost climb with your skis on over the top of that. And after the second race and the third race, and after that, everything changed. But we did make some improvements on it, so it was a little bit easier to get. Oh, thank you. And when we got in far enough north, well, then we made the trail so that it would end where our finish line was, because that was open country that Ernie had cleared an awful lot of land back in there during his. He was a contractor, so in the wintertime he had time to log and do a lot of that woods work. And he was, in later races that we held from his place, he was very cooperative in helping us maybe go through a grass swamp or an area that was that could be packed down and made into a decent trail. So he was very cooperative. And any questions up to this point?
No, I think we're doing pretty well. Because the first few years you started and ended in the same place, at Ernie Linder's place.
Yeah.
Right.
From there, as my memory serves me, on the first race ended right right in that parking lot. And the award ceremony was right in that,
In the parking lot.
And so everybody was, and it was pretty cool. I don't know if you remember those days or not, but
I don't remember them.
but it was cool. You know, you come in from skiing. I skied. I skied. That's one of the very few races I ever skied on race day. In fact, first, second, and third race was held there. From that point on, the race course, or not the course, but the race start area had been moved somewhat, and that was, I was all dressed to do that one. That would have been the fourth race, and I had my bib on and I'm ready to go, and I says, I'm not skiing, and there's too many things to watch and to take care of.
Sure.
So that was the last ski race that I did on race day. Was the third race.
Third race, okay. Because we started racing in 73.
73.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My first race was 76.
Mm-hmm.
So my first race, you didn't ski.
No, positively, no. But I there for many years, I would qualify myself by skiing the race, either before the race or after. And I did, I think I tallied up pretty close to 20 of them. But it was always after the
event.
After the race or before.
Right.
So your first race was 76,
Yep.
John?
And I have a certificate that he signed that proves it.
And I think I want to say 75 was. I think it was 75 was first time.
I can still remember that would have been a 76. 76 race when John Larson broke his ski pole before he got to the first food stop. And I was a latecomer, so he was already there, tangled up out in the brush, but I didn't know what he was doing at first. But he was trying to break out a stick to make a ski pole.
Do you remember the picture of John with the blueberries soup all over his mouth?
Yeah.
We have a picture of that.
Yeah, there's several pictures like that. I think every year you can get a picture with me with soup all over.
Well, this was
That's why we have a bib.
This was a young version. Right?
Our food stations were pretty, very, very simple. I know I remember have pictures of, or a picture of the last soup stop. And there was one person at that food station, and there really wasn't hardly anything on the table because it wasn't very big anyway, but that was the food stop. And the things were done pretty
Pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You got any more questions after that point?
How many? Do you remember how many food stations there would have been on those
there
first
would have been,
first few years?
I would say 5.
5?
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember? Were they using the blueberry soup right away, or did we?
Oh, you know, no, that was used
Right away.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. And that it brings up a point where you may want to erase this, what I'm going to say. But when I came in on that first race,